I was actually diagnosed 10 years ago with celiac disease and a lot of food allergies. I was a partner at Accenture. I was in our global practice. I was doing innovative, customer-focused solutions. So I was working with clients all around the world, and the doctor said, this is the reason why you've been sick for 9 years. Here's a piece of paper, go change your life. And I'm like, what is this? What's gluten? So it was very interesting because of having an international background. I immediately went around the world to try and figure out, research-wise, to try and figure out who was leading. Ironically, Australia and New Zealand were the leaders when it came to special diets. Their food labeling was from 2002. The EU was from 2005. When did we come and have labeling laws? 2006. So it's very unusual, obviously, for the US to be behind and not leading. The other thing I wanted to point out is that ever since 2006, the US, well, gluten organizations have been trying to get gluten-free labeling passed. It's gone in front of the FDA. It's going to be this year. It's going to be another year. Last year it was going to be 2011, then it was going to be 2012. Now we're in 2013. We're hoping it's going to be this year. The reason I bring that up is because the other countries have gluten-free labeling laws. Their labeling laws say that in order to say gluten-free, it has to be 20 parts per million or less. From a US perspective, that's what we think ours is going to be. So for the companies that are out there that are saying that they have gluten-free products, most of those are doing one or two things. But one thing is that they're going and they're getting their products certified. There's a couple certification organizations, which I have a little bit later, but the main one is GFCO, or Gluten Certification Organization. That's through the Gluten Intolerance Group. The other thing is that manufacturers are sending their products in to be tested to make sure that it's less than 20 parts per million. One of the other things that came up was, in the sessions, is that people said, well, can we test to zero? The answer is no. You do not have a product that they can test to 0 parts per million. It can be as low as 5%. So when you're looking at it from a gluten-free perspective, that's one thing you need to consider. The other thing I wanted to point out is, as you can see, from a US perspective, it says top 8. You'll hear the word big 8. The big 8 are the top 8 allergens in the US that make up 90% of the reactions. So what are those? It's milk, egg, fish, peanuts, shellfish, soy, tree nuts, and wheat. So what's number 9? Actually, what has just been determined as of last year is that number 9 is actually corn. Number 10 in the US now are sesame seeds. And it's very interesting because if you look at it as far as for what some manufacturers are starting to do, they're starting to take that into consideration. Working with Walt Disney World, because of how much work that they've done with special diets, and they can handle a lot of different allergens, their top request now has been corn. One of the women that was doing the tasting from Allergy-Free Foods, Kelly was just talking about how they changed their formula a couple years ago to include corn. So not only is it the top 8, but now it's corn. If you're sourcing your products from EU or Australia, New Zealand, you will see the labels different than what ours are. If you're sourcing it from the US, and if there was a question in the session, and they said, well, what about caramel coloring? What about modified food starch? From a US perspective, if any ingredient, any main ingredient like modified food starch, if that includes wheat, then what it needs to say is modified food starch, parentheses, wheat, from a labeling perspective. If you don't see the wheat, then that means that it's been made from something else.